Greetings, this is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the lion's voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use I as an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Ras Tafari, the lion's voice. Big up.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Ras Tafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice. Ras Tafari.
It's AWTITUDE representing for Lion's Voice. Yes, massive. This is the time for I and I, the lion, them to tell I and I story, our story. Yes, and we reign and rule like this. Reign and rule, yeah. Selassie, I reign and rule. You can't take the lion vibes, people. If you no fool, cause we know Selassie reign and rule. Reign and rule. Selassie, I reign and rule. Queen Omega drop them in the fire, pull from them, no Queen Omega, she reign and rule. Royal Kushite, ancient essence, Emperor Selassie in a majestical presence, flash of all sevens, projecting through I and I events. We sing a song for the king, we bring joy and blessing and overstanding, yeah. We hear Jah every day, reign and rule, yeah. Selassie, reign and rule. Yes, I lion vibes, Selassie, reign and rule. Attitude say that Boondocks, Black Organization of Global Diplomats optimizing expressions to the world. Till the world, till the end.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lion's Voice. Now put it, I Johnny for say that.
Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to the lion voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here, hear me now. Oh, yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice. Well, I Selassie the first of the Almighty, and this is the Dejazmatch Tafari, and the mission, that's the restoration of the black family. Yeah. Who Jah bless me, say no one curse. Black woman, it's time to merge. Black redemption, we're on the verge. Well, I don't care what you heard. Haile Selassie first, him no second or third. Cause even when their lines are blurred, the eyes stand straight, no bend, no curve. And him give you the love you deserve. Him don't come fi dominate, him come fi serve. Showed us the way home, I live his words. But I can't do it alone, so black woman, let's merge. High tall, sip and herbs, we merge. Massage fi calm her nerves, we merge. Together all demon purge, we merge. Another family emerge, we merge. We spoke and no speech was slurred, we merge. We agreed that Babylon's absurd, we merge. We had pain, now we feel cured, we merge. Hail the king, now she conquered.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabet is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in deaths. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Ras Tafari's father, Ras Tafari, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Tafari is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Tafari knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Ras Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwesi Bansu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
Break the chain, beat not, don't Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwesi Bansu, aka the Dejazmatch Kwesi, aka Ras Kwesi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man. I'm a creative industry attorney, I'm an artist, I'm an author, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Talk Live. Welcome to the Lion Voice Network and welcome to Lion Talk Live, where the lions and the lionesses are telling our own story. We have an exciting show tonight. Today, family, is the anniversary of the union of the Dejazmatch Tafari and Princess Menen. We're going to go into a love story for the ages tonight. I'm so excited. We are also going to talk about marriage, the institution of marriage. And I did a Lion Voice, our last episode. If you haven't seen it, check it out on the channel. We talked about the institution of marriage, Empress Menen, thoughts on marriage, when should a brethren get married. We touch all of these topics. So if you haven't seen that one yet, go forward and check the archives. If this is your first time watching the program, welcome. We've had a huge influx of subscribers. The Lion Pride is growing. We are fast approaching 3,000 subscribers. So if this is your first time watching, you're new to the Lion Pride, I'm saying welcome. This is your place. You know, this is where like minds are gathered. This is high level Ras Tafari, unapologetic reasoning, Pan-African reasoning. This is the uprising, the platform where we're bringing the workers in the vineyard to the family, and you know, whether they be
creative artists, whether they be professors, whether they be chemical engineers, whether they be doctors. We have the whole gambit, grassroots, no matter what spectrum, as long as they are workers moving us forward. This is the platform where we gathered, and this is powered by the Lion Pride on Patreon. So if you subscribe, you are part of the Lion Pride. And if you see the value in what we're doing, bringing Rastafari to a global audience, elevating the conversation, being that connective tissue, if you see value, then join us within the Lion Pride on Patreon. We have 13 fire angels from around the world that are investing monthly to ensure that the program can grow and develop. We were at 18, we lost some. This is part of being a creative, perseverance, patience. We have to refine what we're doing. We can't blame the audience. We have to refine what we're doing, and we have to continue to strive. But I just have to give thanks to all of the Lion Pride on Patreon. And I know so many want to support. It's Armageddon. We're living hand to mouth, a lot of us. I see even in my Patreon, we get declined account sometime. That's the reality of where we are. No judgment. And then people come forward. We're a family. That's how it is. But as I said, I always have to acknowledge the Lion Pride on Patreon, because they see the vision where we're taking this Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. We want blockbuster films, we want animation, we want news programming, we want sports, we want Rastafari, everything as it relates to positive content and our worldview. And it starts here at the Lion Voice Network. Big up all of the other Rastafari on the front line. We'll be interviewing a lot of them here who are in the media space. So if you're not subscribed, become part of the Lion Pride and what we're doing here. Big up everyone on the Lion Pride. I have to big up Ras Lidge, Ramia King Design, our sponsor. When you see me sipping my water, this is a Rastafari business. You saw the advertisement at the beginning. They are a sponsor, so we are working together, family. We have to invest in ourselves. No one's coming to save us. I keep saying that on this platform. No one is coming to save us. So if we're not circulating our Rastafari dollar amongst each other, then we might as well just pack it up and we join the global reset that's coming. Family, Gideon, remember on this platform I told the item World War III was taking place. We have just witnessed 2 assassinations that are potentially going to throw the world into chaos. We are watching, waiting for the response from the Iranian government, from Hezbollah. But I told the item here because of what our elders had told us. This is a prophetic time. This is not going to stop. This is not going to ease up. Are we prepared? One of the things that we're doing on this channel is we're connecting the dots so that we can be prepared globally as a Rastafari family for what is to come. Because dreadful times are ahead. If you think 2023, if you think the pandemic was rough, family, rougher times are coming. The whole world plunged into darkness because of greed and this global agenda, this globalist agenda. So I have to be prepared, and the Lion Voice Network, Rastafari Media is key so that we are getting out our own, because censorship is real. We have a strike on this channel because we talked about, something related to COVID. So anything that doesn't fit the central narrative is being screened and filtered. So again, just become part of the family, and we are going to continue to build. But I just have to take the time to give thanks for everyone who's supporting us. Hundreds of people watch the videos. Big up everyone who, we have over 1,000 views on our Norseman video, over 1,000 views now on our Queen Omega video. So I really give thanks again for the support. I'm humbled to see the growth of the platform. You know what I mean? Ones may not watch live in the moment, but literally hundreds of people tuning in. And I think about seeing that in a room and what that would look like. 1,000 people is not a little bit of people. 500 people is not a little bit of people. So we're humble. So I want to take the time to acknowledge. And the Ubuntu Lion Pride, we have two brethren. If you're not, you don't want to do the monthly subscription, you can do a one-time donation. If it's over $50 US, then you become part of the Ubuntu Lion Pride, meaning, you give when you can. Maybe you don't have it, but you want to be part of that change that you want to see. So we have the Ubuntu Lion Pride there as well. So big up everyone, each and every one of you who is supporting. All right, so we have Seabass Life. Can't forget the Iras. Will big up yourself, the greatest Seabass drink in the world. All right, so we're done with the housekeeping. Now is the exciting part where we bring forward our guests for the evening. I am going to proudly say tonight that Lion Voice Network, we have a repository of the most Rastafari PhDs anywhere in the world. I'm going to say that tonight. I want someone drop a comment if they can prove I wrong. And tonight we have one of our doctorate level scholars who's going to give us a context for this reasoning as we celebrate the 113th wedding anniversary of the Dejazmatch Tafari and Princess Menen. We're bringing in a heavy hitter, someone who has been to Ethiopia, done research, put her hands on Empress Menen archives, wrote a book, and I want everyone to purchase this book before the end of the program, the Empress Menen Chronicles, and you can go to the website, Empress Menen Chronicles. We'll put it in the chat. We're going to talk about it. So we're going to get all of this, and this book, trust me, I've been studying Rastafari for decades, and I learned so much from this anthology. A lot of my sisters are in there. I didn't even know my sister Montez get married, and looking at the book and me say Montez in there is like a family reunion. So much vibes, you know what I mean? So we're going to talk about it tonight. So Lion Pride family, and put your questions in the chat. You know how we do it over here. This is a family. We're around the heretical virtual fireplace, reasoning and grounding. So help I to welcome family, Dr. Asantewaa Wadie, Oppong Wadie. Apologies.
Give thanks. No worries. Yes, I give thanks. What a blessing. What a blessing. I appreciate love this opportunity to share. This is a subject very close to my heart. So give thanks for the opportunity.
Yes. And I has been on this platform 2 times already, but we have never had a chance to really go into the iTrod. So if you allow I'm going to ask the I to step into the Lion Talk time machine and take us to the year of your birth. Where were you born? And take us just through your journey to Rastafari. How does Asantewaa become the professor of history that we see today?
First I would like to thank you for asking me to do this, because for a long time I just do not share my story publicly, not for any other reason except not so that my story gets in the way of the story that I need to tell,
Okay.
And I always felt like the story I needed to tell had more importance. But I think it does help listeners, students, whoever's hearing you, put in context who you are,
Yes.
and the lens you're coming from and your platform, when they know, exactly your steps, how you got here.
Yes.
So quickly, I am Asantewaa Oppong Wadie, and my birth name actually differs. I was My birth name is Offense Smith, actually.
Okay.
And I was born to Jamaican immigrant parents
Okay.
who came to Illinois, specifically the city of Chicago, in the late 1960s. And as it turns out, I'm the third of four children. So by the time of my birth, my parents had moved out of the city. They kind of were very privy, as a lot of immigrant families are, to, wait, this city is not what was promised to us when we were in Jamaica. There were several dangers in the city of Chicago, and they just didn't want that for their children. So they moved us further out. And as it turns out, that would be very instrumental into who I would become. So
Okay.
I actually was born in the city of Evanston, which is a suburb just maybe not even 10 minutes outside of the city of Chicago. And in that little city, it's a college town. It's the home of Northwestern University. Um, it and it has that kind of feel to it in terms of very academic and a place of scholars. So all of those things would impact me, even if I don't always own it. You know, matriculated through their school system all the way from K through 12 in the city of Evanston, and would graduate and go on to the University of Illinois, Chicago. But if I back up a little bit, I need to say that my parents were both pastors. And
Okay.
with my father running an independent Jamaican church that served the Jamaican community in Chicago. There were many, and a lot of people had come to the city of Chicago on visas to be domestic helps to the rich white families that lived on the Lake Shore. So they all needed to be churched, and he developed an independent church. And the good thing about coming up in an independent church was that, one, there was a model for it in Jamaica, right? And so he just transferred that model here. But also for me was that it was not gender restrictive. There's so many, as I found out later in life, a lot of the churches are gender restrictive in that women don't preach, women don't preside over services or anything like this. But because it was not gender restrictive, my father saw in me, I would say, the ability to serve. And he invited me into ministry at the age of 14.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, I was ordained. And it sounds like an unbelievable story because one, when you tell it here, they immediately say women don't preach. Women, all the denominational churches have restrictions. But I don't know how else to describe it except that it was an independent, black church, and there was no restrictions. And so, yeah. Coming into ministry meant that I had to be very responsible at 14 for everything that I did. One, understanding that people were looking at me, but also responsible for delivery of information. And so he really walked me through kind of the basic skills that I still use. That is how to go through to the text, anything that they were using, usually from the Bible, and make the text speak to you, and then bring the text to the world in a new way with a new vision. So that's
Okay.
the basic skills that we still use as professors. It is going to the text and lifting the lecture out of the text. I was in the church, and the church was my life. There
Wow.
would be no reason for me ever to even dream about leaving that church,
That
except
explains so much because your delivery is very, you have that delivery,
yes,
that captivating delivery. So now
yes,
I'm connecting the dots. I didn't know
yes,
that you were from my homeland of Jamaica either. So my eyes are open. But
right.
continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so my students say that all the time. Oh, you were a preacher. I get it, right? Um, so yeah, it was that you use words to reach people. You don't leave words just sitting there. Words have to be infused with a spiritual power. That was basic to the Pentecostal experience that I came up in. But as I was saying, I was so enmeshed in the church that it would take something as serious as our family coming undone and divorce, all this, to get me to recognize that, whoa, we might not have all the whole truth, because I felt I did. I would probably still feel that way. You know what I'm saying? That I didn't have all the answers. And so
Okay.
18, I started looking elsewhere, you know. I had formally left the church, which was very difficult. And I started looking elsewhere. Like, what else is there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the church ain't it, right?
Wow.
And I ran into so many at the University of Illinois Chicago, you know, flyers come out, Black concerned students, you know, Black students for a cause. And, you know, eventually I said, you know, I'm gonna stop skipping these meetings and just go.
Yeah.
And I went, and I had a travel buddy who used to travel the train with me. We used to commute together to school. And she was like, I'm not going. I don't believe in that. But I was so firm in my mind that I was like, I don't need your company. I appreciate you, sis, but I'm staying. Right.
Yeah.
And that would open the next chapter of my life in terms of becoming a Black nationalist. Because
Okay.
they were a study group and they studied Black nationalism, all of the authors. And we met like 3 or 4 times a week, and sometimes informally. In addition to whatever you're working on, you know, for school, we were deep into the text. Aikwe Armah, you know, John Henry Clark. We could just go on. And Marimba Ani.
Okay.
And there was a conference being held on the campus of Howard University that we learned about, and we were like, whether we beg or whatever, we're going to have to go, you know. And we went. 3 of us went from Chicago, and that was life changing to meet Dr. John Henry Clark.
Wow.
He was at that time blind, but still just so awesome. Dr. Anthony Browder, Dr. Marimba Ani, from Chicago, Dr. Anderson Thompson. I mean, all of these people who we had read, we were able to meet them. We were able to ask questions. And I remember them saying, you know, the PhD is your passport. That's how you're going to get to the next level. That's how you're going to get where we are so that you can teach and talk to other people.
Okay.
And just get it. It's your passport, you know. And so that was the first kind of seeding of, you know, go ahead, study, finish. But as I got into grad school, you know, it didn't feel like a passport. It felt like a prison. I was at Northwestern, which I don't know. But this year, a documentary came out called Shame of Chicago, Shame of Nation, that really explores Northwestern's role in racially segregating this whole country. So this is not a minimally racist institution. And there were maximum obvious, reported, known racist ideas coming out of this school. And it could be felt.
Wow.
So for a while, I actually stepped away from studies and, you know, took a break. And so after graduating undergrad, I got involved with a program called, the name is escaping me right now, but it was a program to get more minority professors into the business of being ready to be a professor and eligible and applying for positions. And so, you know, it was a great program. And, you know, they paired us up with a professor. We could look over their shoulder. We could see how they research. We could see how they present papers. This was very eye-opening. But the biggest part of that program was that I met a gentleman named Marvin. Big up to Marvin if he's listening. And he said to me, he was like, Africa is where it's at. My mother has gone, and I have an opportunity to go through Temple University. And I was like, oh, Marvin, that's awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Everything I had been studying was leading me to this point where I did want to go to Africa.
Yes.
And he gave me the application. He started the process for me. And I worked through Temple University's African American Studies program and got accepted in the program and ended up in Ghana in 1995.
Oh,
well,
wow.
Yeah, my world was open. You know, before leaving, my mom, her sisters, my grandmother, they were like, listen, we've seen the starving children in Africa, you know. I don't want you to be hungry. And I just remember my grandma using duct tape and duct taping the peanut butter jars because she was like, if you don't duct tape them, they'll break in your suitcase. You know, she said, I'm going to duct tape this. If you're hungry, just have a spoon, you know, have some of the peanut butter. And she was so concerned. They were all so concerned. But it was obviously, you know, breaking these generational curses and breaking generational negative patterns of
Yes.
negatively about Africa. It was necessary for me to go. Just me going has changed everybody's mind. You know, my
Yes.
mom is now saying, I want to go, you know, where before she was like, who would go? Who would
Yeah.
do that? Why would you do that? Pick somewhere else. You
Yeah.
know, but there was a necessary family shift that was needed. I can see that now. And once in Africa, awesome, awesome. We were students at the University of Ghana Legon. We
Okay.
were studying at the premier Kwame Nkrumah's Institute of African Studies. Um, we had access to the library. We had access to the professors. School was on strike when we arrived, so everybody was at our beck and call, and they would come into the classes, and it was so rich. And then there were the students from Temple University who were themselves calling themselves Afrikaners. I had never heard that. They came
Mm.
to class with like 20 books, like ready to refute what the professor was saying. I had never seen scholars with that much finesse, and you know, I just wanted that. And
Yeah.
um, it was there that I also realized that they were like me, seeking to touch lives, and felt that being a professor would be a great way to do that.
Okay.
But again, you know, there is that mantra: finish the PhD.
Yes.
Um, so that was great. The other thing was that I was a vegetarian, and being in Africa on campus, kind of campus bound, you know, because
Yeah.
the program had restrictions. Um, it was very difficult,
Oh
and
wow.
I actually got kind of sick. But you know, they were being, as I would say, they were doing the best job they knew how. You
And
know,
that
and
was 95 when Ghana, before Ghana had the vegan selection.
right, the
Because I
big burst
remember
of
when I
vegan
went there in
availability,
2000,
right?
yeah, when I went there in 2005, it was still a little bit rough
Hey,
to get you know, the ITA.
food. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
now you got vegan restaurants all over the place.
Everywhere. Yeah, and
Yeah,
good food too. Yeah.
good food. But continue. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And so you know, our standard diet at the school cafeteria was rice and tomato sauce. And man, we were there for a whole semester, so that, you know, we were tired within a couple of weeks. And we heard that there was a place called Jara, um, downtown Accra, and one day we all got in a taxi and just went,
Yeah,
right? But it was far. It was far. But it felt far from the campus.
yeah.
But the food, the Ras Tafari vibrations. I mean, he had pictures that I still have. You know, that I purchased there. You know, we just couldn't believe it. And I was like, Jamaicans in Ghana. You know, like it was confusing. But they were like, yeah, and then there's more of us. If you go up into the hills, there's even more. Like, I was like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Um, anyway, it was a great experience, but you know, maybe something we could have done maybe once or twice during the trip.
Yes.
So, you know, I didn't get to repeat that, but while I was on campus, the sister that traveled with me from Chicago, she told me, she said, you know, there are Rastafari brethren in Commonwealth, the male hall, the male dorm, who cook every night. And they are so open. They share the food, and, you know, you should go if you rather than struggle, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
What am I going to look like going up to the male dorm? Being like, hi, I heard that you all do that.
I heard you guys are bubbling.
Right, but eventually I would say that, you know, the hunger got the better of me, and I just went up one evening, and you know, essentially said hi. You know, I heard that you all do food, and they were so kind, and they were so open, as you would expect Rastafari people to be.
Yes,
um,
yes.
and the chef that evening was the person who would become my husband. I didn't know that.
Oh wow! I was gonna ask, is this where? Because I'm waiting for the love story.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that. And you know, as they're sitting around and they're cooking and, you know, waiting to share the food, they're also giving teachings, and the teaching was part of it. You know, the food was maybe the draw. But they're giving teachings, and my mind was closed. I already know everything. I'm a Black nationalist, you know, and they would ask important questions like, you know, what nation are you a nationalist? And I thought America. Wait, that's not right. Wait, what nation? I didn't know. You know, and so you identify as a nationalist, but for what nation? That was a real important question.
Yes.
And I remember saying, you know what? I'm gonna go home in a couple weeks anyway, and they'd be like, home? Where's home? Are you saying home is Chicago? Because that's not a home. There's no home there for Black people. It was a shift because I had never heard Rastafari teaching before. My parents were diehard Christians.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
yes.
Side story: my father's sister, my father's aunt, had 7 boys. Each of them died in infancy,
Wow.
and he tells the story that she was so happy when Rastafari really started to pick up in Jamaica because she said, if any of those boys had lived, at least one of them would be Rastafari, and that's how much she hated it.
Oh wow.
Like we do not want that in this family. So I already had barriers to learning the information, and I remember my husband and others at that time saying, "Why don't you humble yourself? Why don't you listen? Why don't you learn?" But I was so resistant to the information but kept going, for the food and the vibe. It was a nice vibe. But they left a lot of serious thoughts with me, and really before the end of the trip, I felt like I could stay here. I could just work. Why would I go back home? And my mom, I talked to her on the phone. She said, "Listen, they've written you from Northwestern. They said that you have a full scholarship. Come back. Don't. I let her persuade me. Yes. I came back, but my heart was in a different place. Like, why would I even be at a theological school, which was what my first master's degree is in theology? Okay. Why would I be here? Why am I doing this? But Northwestern University brags that it has the largest collection of African books in the world in the Herzkovitz Library. Okay. And that was my home. I situated myself there. And I mean, shelf after shelf on Rastafari.
Wow.
And I immersed myself into that literature. That was really, I hear one saying that, they reasoned, they met this elder and that elder. That wasn't really my path in, My path was really the research, on the research end. And baptizing myself in the books. By the time it was time to write the master's thesis, they told me I needed 100 sources to even present a paper on Rastafari. And I said, no problem. I've got over 100 sources. I've got over 100 sources. And I made the list, and they could say nothing. They could say nothing. They themselves weren't aware that there was so much out there. But at the same time, I identified problems and gaps, and perhaps we can talk about that later.
Yes.
But I wrote the paper on the spirituality of Bob Marley's lyrics, and that was it was great. My heart was open now. I wasn't in a stubborn place.
Okay.
Anymore,
Yes.
So
at this time, were you natural? How were you dressing? How were you moving through earth?
Right. Well, so
your journey.
The Black nationalist movement really promoted us wearing African clothes and wrapping our hair. So I was already doing that.
Okay.
And then I should say that when I was in Ghana, I went to Elmina, the oldest slave dungeon. Man, more than I can say happened there. As you might imagine, you fall apart. Everyone is crying. I made a covenant. I was like, I'm going to change something. It's good that they did not have a tattoo parlor there because I would have tattooed myself. I needed to mark myself to somehow remember this experience. And I went outside. I sat on the rocks and I said, I'm not combing my hair anymore. That's it.
Okay. So
that was my mark. That was the way I knew I would remember.
Okay. So your locks have been growing since that time?
Since that time.
Wow.
Yeah. And, the Rastafari brethren was like, oh, she'll change it. Everybody changes when they go back. Not me. Not me,
So when you return to America, you have this young, handsome Rastafari brethren in university. How were you keeping in touch with your man.
Yeah, so it was a letter base. We had to write letters.
Wow. So young people, tell the young people what a letter is.
Um, right. Like what the bills you get in the mail. But in this case, you know what I'm saying? Handwritten letters. Handwritten letters.
Wow.
Going back and forth. That was the only way. There was one email for the whole University of Ghana. And so if you sent an email, it went through a person to get to him. It wasn't,
Yeah,
you know, so it just would have to be general, like, hi, you
Yeah.
know. So no, that wasn't it. You really had to do handwritten letters and wait 2 weeks
Wow.
once the letter was dropped. So you're constantly writing letters so that you get letters all the time, you know.
Okay, nice.
And that
What a
would,
love
it would
story.
remain that way for 2 years, you know.
What
2
a
years.
love story. I hope the people them, because tonight is a night we celebrate love family. So I love this story. Professor Oppong Wadie is here with us tonight. If you have any questions, put them down in the chat. We're gonna go deep into the union between the Dejazmatch Tafari and Princess Menen. Big up Fight Babylon, the Lion Pride on Patreon on the check-in. Fight Babylon, big up yourself. Fight Babylon and Freeway Dread. I have to big up these two brethren who never leave me out, you know. On the battlefield, they've been supporting I and I in the Patreon from early and continue to do so. So I have to big them up. All right, so tell us now. You're studying these books, the lyrics. How do you reconcile the divinity of His Imperial Majesty? You know, coming from a theological background, you're a person who preached the gospel.
Right.
So you know prophecy. You know how are you reconciling the divinity of Haile Selassie the First in that time?
You know, it was confusing, and it was the last part of it that I would say I was able to own and make mine. It was very, very difficult. You know, when you come up in a home where they teach you about blaspheming, and you know, if you renounce Jesus, you know, you're going to hell for sure. So I very cautiously I walked towards, just without needing to prove it. And this is, I guess, the nationalist part. It is what I said it is. You know what I'm saying? I can set the tone. If I say he's God, that's what he is. You know, um, and started as a whisper until I could be strong enough to take on, like, my brothers and others who would come to me like, "That's craziness. You can't do that. Only the poor and backward people do that." Um, you know, it became a gradual thing. So I was 2 years apart from who would become my husband, and he was really a great strength for me, and I could lean on him to explain. But with him being not there, I had to learn myself.
Yes.
And that was good because I developed my own backbone in it. And then when I was really stuck, I would write him or call him. So that was another thing that we had. We did have the ability to call each other
Yes.
once a week for 1 hour. Yeah. And I could ask him, and you know, he would always have the answer, and he had read some of the same books, so he would reference me on where to look to find answers to my queries. But more importantly, it was about me just being strong enough that if I lose family, it's okay. If I lose friends, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? I was hungry for something, you know, and I had several dreams about His Majesty. You know, that's the mystical side. You know, things appear to you, but just more and more, I got clarity on the divinity of His Majesty, and was in the tribe now. And by this time, Ras Tafari is here in Chicago with me, and I had stopped the graduate program. I finished the master's, but didn't go on to the doctorate. And we started our family. I was pregnant with my first daughter, and working as a teacher, Montessori teacher. And then I began to ask important questions like, why doesn't Ras Tafari have an established midwifery tradition? You know, who will be the midwife? We knew we wanted sacred birth. We knew we wanted to be the first hands to touch the child. We knew that we wanted our voice to be the first voice the child heard. We knew that we didn't want any separation of mother and baby. We knew that the placenta was very important to us, that, that wasn't, we didn't want the hospital to take control of that. Um, all of those things were important to us, but how do we do that? In this, in the Ras Tafari tradition, where are the people who are holding this knowledge? And this is really where I started to question and go deep. How can we call ourselves, something that I've heard you talk about, Ras Kwasi, is like, like we're creating a heaven on earth. Like, how are we creating this new world and there's nothing in here that will support birth? Birth is basic. If we're not born, we're not here. And they didn't have no answer. Nobody had any answers. Nobody had any answers. Nobody had any answers. And eventually, we were like whispered to go and speak to the Hebrew Israelites, which they have a big faction here in Chicago, that they established enough with their own midwives and could give us the sacred birth that we wanted. And that was 100% true. They had several choices. They didn't ask for a lot. They didn't mind us being Ras Tafari, and they weren't. They asked for permission to pray in their way when they come into the birth room, and that we could permit that. And I learned so much. Oh my goodness, about women's health, about how we just everything we had to cram into that short pregnancy, because I met her when I was already 7 months pregnant, but she started laying out, what it means to have sacred birth. And I'm like, this information needs to be canonized. This information needs to be made available to everyone. Where do we put it? Where do we put it? Right? And how come Ras Tafari doesn't have it? Right around that time, I ran into I don't know if you remember that publication. It was like a small
Jahog.
Yeah.
Yes.
I ran into one on Empress Menen where Nana Faraika had written an article on Empress Menen.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa, and I like when I read that, like I knew Empress Menen was the way forward. Like because
and I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna have to play this for Nana Faraika. Big up! I was with Nana Faraika recently, and she had a vision that Empress Menen came to her and told her to go and tell the world about Queen Amiga, and so you saying that is a fulfillment of that mission, But continue.
Yes, I mean, like because prior to that, I may have heard her name mentioned, but no in-depth information.
Yes.
And Nana Faraika says in that article, most importantly, is that this was hidden from us. This was not something that was unknown. People knew, they hid it. They hid it. They hid it for a lot of different reasons, and that we had to be, the voices that brought Empress Menen to the fore, right? And there was so much to unpack there, but I'll leave that for right now. That article, I photocopied it, and every Nyabingi we went to, I would just hand out the photocopy. I made copies for everybody. I don't know if you've heard of Empress Menen. Here's a copy. So that was the precursor of the Empress Menen Chronicles.
Okay.
I felt people had to know, and people, everyone was so nice. Oh, thank you, sister. And go put it down. I don't know if they read it later. I don't know, but that was my job at the Nyabingi.
Okay.
Was to make sure we were disseminating information on Empress Menen, and by and by, I had like 3 children now. We encountered Empress Imani from Cleveland, Ohio, also known as Karen Hardy. She has since made her transition. She's an ancestor now. She came to Chicago, not really because she wanted to, it was just where she ended up. And she had in Cleveland started Empress Menen midwifery, women's work, ministry, and she was a
Okay.
grand midwife, someone who had successfully delivered over 200 children. And she was like, I've been waiting to meet somebody like you, someone who understands the urgency of what is happening here. If Rastafari is for the family, everybody needs to be administered to. And we can establish this together. And so we began to work. We together developed a puberty rights program for
Oh,
girls
wow.
that have ran. It's in its fourth or fifth iteration now.
Wow.
Yeah, it has over 15 years old now. We began to just write things down for a midwifery training program for Rastafari women. We even designed a uniform that Rastafari women could wear when administering to the health of anyone, separate from the nurse's uniform that you see in the hospital. We just had ideas and we would do them. But one of the things that I noticed about her, because she was a naturopathic doctor by training, and also a grand midwife, people would call her from all around the world, all hours of the night. And like, I have this condition, I have that condition. And she would just slowly tell you, how to fix it. But then the other thing I noticed about her is like a lot of times when people are talking to her, as you're sitting there with her, people are telling their condition, she would go into something like a trance. And she would say things like, you know what, this is a block based on some trauma that you had 3 years ago. And she would just tell them. And I was like, how are you doing that? And she was like, the spirit speaks to me. And in that, I began to see that was a gift that she brought everywhere she went. And I remember at one night at Bingy, like, the drums had come, it starts to slow down a little bit. And she started putting out her voice very clearly. She said, His Majesty is not a single parent. I want you all to know he's not a single parent. And, people respected the fact that she was coming forth with some vibes and they lowered the drums. And she started to explain that we've carried him like a single parent, like he's unattached to a family. And that he was coming through her to say, stop, I'm attached to the family. I'm a unit. And she's the first person who told me, like, if Empress Menen is going to reveal herself to you, you need her picture on your bed, somewhere by your bed, so that when you wake up in the morning, you see it right away.
Wow.
Because the eye will pick it up. And one of the things I got from her was that this prophetic ability that we've seen Black women demonstrate, there was no clear path for it in Rastafari for women. There were prophetic brothers, man,
Yes.
and there are, who drum, chant, and tell you things like can see the future, but there was no clear path. You know what I'm saying? For how women did it, and I saw that as something that we needed to develop, because even from the time in ancient times, the Sibyls, in ancient times, noted in ancient Libya and North Africa, kings, warlords would come to them and ask them. If you read the works of Herodotus and Socrates, they would say that I went to see the Sibyls and asked them, what is the history of this? What is the history of that? These women had such clear ability to pick up information that wasn't present. And I'm like, if we have this gift, then in Rastafari, where do we put it? How does it translate? Right? Or we are silent, or what? I don't know. But she really encouraged me to keep on the journey. Eventually she left Chicago and transitioned. And I haven't really had a strong anchor like that since then, but I'm so grateful for that experience of to just see somebody who lived it and helped so many people. Helped so many people from all over the world. And it was important to me to be true and maintain the fidelity of what we agreed upon, that within the Rastafari tribe, we would make it comfortable for sisters, for mothers, for elder women to fully be present. That is, there's no part of yourself that you have to explore somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? You can bring it here, and Rastafari can develop it, and it can be beautiful here. And so that has been my work. We run Empress Menen Day in Chicago Uh,
Nice.
this is it's going into its 10th year. Um, Unfortunately, I think, or fortunately, it has attracted more people who are not Ras Tafari. They are interested in it for the history part, and they
Okay.
were the ones who said, you know what, we need a takeaway. We can't just hear Empress Menen, once a year. We need a book, and so it was to meet their demands that we put pen to paper for Empress Menen Chronicles, and every year they encourage more, as we put out footage, we put out film, yeah, we put out, we want to put out more writing, put out articles. There's a thirst for more. And so, really, really, really been encouraged on this mission. I consider it a divine mission, a sacred mission of what must be done. All of our traditions, no matter what they are going through a purification process. If I'm not
Yeah.
wrong, when I look at all of them, like just like His Majesty said, when I went back and I looked at the ancient texts, I could see that Ethiopia had deviated from them, right?
Yes.
I brought
Yes.
it back in alignment. And so, that's my heart feeling that, there are things that we've adopted over time because of our situation, because of where we are, that aren't the best fit. And there's room for growth. And yeah, we are pushing that. We are pushing that boundary, um, and talking back and asking people to listen up. There's another vision.
No.
Not to up. I don't want. I want to be clear. I'm not trying to upend.
No. 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 And what you have said, because we have talked about on this program the rites of passage aspect, and to know that you already have a curriculum, it sounds like all you need is funding.
Right. Right.
And the midwifery curriculum, these things are essential parts of the global Rastafari ecosystem. And this is why
Yes.
I tell my viewers and my audience, we have to fund ourselves because we have these resources
Yes.
in the community. The more I do these interviews, is the more I see that we have everything that we need to thrive and to create this utopia or Ethiopia that we want to see. And it's really just connecting the dots. So I really give thanks for you guys sharing that journey. It's such a poetic journey. It's such a mighty journey. And we will be interviewing your king man to get his side of it too. Find out about the love letter them and all that. But tonight we celebrate the royal wedding. So I want to get into the topic. We have a history professor family here. I try not to disappoint the support that I have and the people who believe in and I want to bring the resources to make the day special. So I want the eye to set the context around the history. Let us step forward into the Lion Talk time machine to 1911. You can go a little bit before 1911 on this very day. What are the circumstances that leads the Dejazmatch Tafari to marry a young princess, Tege Menen, from Outer Wallow? And, granted, the Dejazmatch Tafari can have any girl in the realm, because of his station with Ras McCunnin. This is one of the most eligible bachelors. He already has a child
Yeah.
at this time. He's a young man. He's stationed in Harar, where he's already spent a year organizing the administration of Harar. And one of the first things that he did in Harar was to organize the military force because he inherited a huge military, one of the greatest
Yes.
fighting forces of the realm, Ras McCunnin's private army. One of the first things that he did was to ensure that instead of them, just going around the region and take a man goat, take a man, you just show up at your gate, which is how the soldiers did it. They're in the region, they just took what they needed. He organized that they would have barracks where the officers would sleep with the soldiers, where they would have a chef, where they would be, there would be a budget for their provision. There would be regular training because before that, the soldiers only came together at a time of war when the war drum was beating. They would stay in the region, but they were kind of fending for themselves until they were called up. So the institutional structure. This is what in the age of 19 going into 20 and in 20th year, this is what a young Tafari is doing. So with that being said, I pass the baton to you. Set the stage for us of this royal union.
All right. I want to say that there are several tellings of this story. And if we look at His Majesty's autobiography, he doesn't flush out his union with Empress Menen that much in it. And I would say that is because of when it was written. If I understand, he wrote this during the invasion. He sat down to have his autobiography formally put together. And so it wasn't a time where he could really, drift down memory lane and,
Yes.
remember the sweet things. There were, larger concerns on the table. But when we read Empress Menen's biography, this is not an autobiography. It was written by a priest and later translated into English by Angelique Parnell. But when we read it, we can see that she had time. There was time to reflect. So the fullest telling of their union, when it came together, is from Empress Menen's biography.
Okay.
And we have to be careful, though, as we approach it, because the translator, Miss Angelique Parnell, has put in italics her thoughts, not the translation.
Okay.
The translation is in standard print, but her thoughts are in italics. But as you're reading, we read things straight through. As you're reading, you might conflate her thoughts with the translation. And so you have to be very careful in there. Yes. And Empress Menen's personal family has come to me and said, like, this, I'm sorry, that's not what happened.
Okay.
Because her thoughts are not always, I don't know. It's not always a reliable source. So be careful as you're quoting from this. She has melded her thoughts with this text, right? But just reading what is in standard print, and we know that this is a translation, so there's room for error.
Yes.
It is explained that Empress Menen was royalty, and definitely we saw that when we traveled to Ethiopia. Her grandfather's palace, Ras Mikhael's palace, would be the grounds of like your modern urban or suburban high school. It's that big.
Okay.
It was massive, and he was the king of Wollo, which is no small region.
Yes.
And had a fortress that's really sitting on top, overlooking all of Wollo. You could see 365 from his place. And so this underscored for us that, whoa, she's coming from a mighty family. And one of the things that various authors have written about, including Tafla, an article called Marriage as a Political Device in 19th Century Ethiopia, he has thoroughly explained that these young people who were born to these royal families were pawned almost in the interest of keeping the state together, because Wollo could at any point break away. They had, as you said, their own standing army, right? Or this region, Gojim, could break away because they had their own standing army. And so to bring those regions together, what political and powerful people did was let my daughter marry your son. So now we have a family tie in common. We won't war upon each other, you know, and that children should be born of that union. And the story is told that Ras Johannes approached Menelik II and asked him, let the same thing, let your daughter marry my son. And, Menelik II said, you know what, she's so young. What are you talking about? She's 6, right? And Johannes had to remind him that even the baby that is in the holder still has a responsibility when we're talking about the elite and how the country is held together. We're even talking about them, the ones who are still in the holder, much less a 6-year-old that's walking around. And in the end, after a few years, he did allow his daughter to go with Ras Johannes' son. So that underscores why Empress Menen was in these marriages so early as 9.
Yes.
Which is just so unnerving to
Yeah.
the American era, that she entered her first marriage. And these marriages were civil marriages. As I explained last time, civil marriages are not confirmed by the church and hence can be entered in and exited with great ease.
Yes.
She was put in a marriage with a much older gentleman, um, and was in that marriage and had her first child with him at 11.
Wow.
At 11. And she would be in 3 such marriages where her family would approach her. One husband suddenly died, but in the other cases, her family would approach and say, listen, it's time to move. It's time to shift. There's another alliance that needs to be made. And having really no choice in the matter, she would go along because that was the move of the family, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it seems that Lijiasu, who was son of Ras Mikhael, uncle of Empress Menen, um, put her in a union with, or introduced her to then Dejazmatch Tafari,
Mhm.
in order to ameliorate the threat that Lijiasu felt coming from him.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
he was definitely such a shining star that he would be eligible for the throne. And it seems that he wanted to ameliorate that and put those two together. But if we believe what the italics in Empress Menen's biography, it seems that when they met, they understood themselves, that there was a commonality that immediately was apparent to those around them and to them, um, that they had something strong and beautiful. And I believe he saw in Empress Menen the fortitude that you need for the big vision that he had for Ethiopia. There's
Yes.
no question, as early as 1919, when he was plenipotentiary under Empress Wadie II, he sent the delegation to the United States. They came with his picture to a city here like Chicago, uh,
Yes.
saying that this is the prince right now. And these are his wishes. So he had the big vision from his father, who also had a big vision for Ethiopia, as we heard in the beginning of the program. To modernize Ethiopia, bring Ethiopia to the place where she was not like dwarfed by these modern nations. And so he had a big vision, and he saw in Empress Menen, whoa, she has the will. She has the will. She has the strength to do that. Of course, um, as it was said at her coronation, the king desires your beauty.
Yes.
That was chanted over her. So of course he found her beautiful. Of course, there was all the things that occur between men and women, but most importantly, I think he saw the person who could bring the vision to the fore, the person with the willingness, and
Yes.
I would say that had the composure and internal fortitude to bring that vision to the fore. And he was not wrong. He was not wrong. You know,
Well, he has a far eye, and Empress Menen talk about she was no slouch intellectually.
that's right.
She was very sharp. She knew multiple languages as well as a noble would know. And then also, I know the Dejazmatch Tafari would also know the history of Wallo, the importance of Wallo, and having that familial connection, because one of the things we're going to get to later is that marriage is never about romantic. This idea of romantic marriage is a European concept, you know what I mean? Which is why Ethiopia had the civil unions to allow for these political bonds, and then they had the Orthodox, which there was no divorce um, from. I think it is said that also they met in the house of Lij Ayasu or Ras Mikael. So they would have been keeping the Dejazmatch Tafari close. They know he has an army that's loyal to him.
Right.
One of the most fierce armies. This was one of the things that made him so remarkable. He would have been considered a nerd by modern standards because he was a bookworm. He was always in the books, but
Right.
he was also an equestrian star. He was known for his horseback riding, likely trained by the famous Oromo cavalry of his father. So, you could do the horse tricks and all of these things. There's stories about him and a race with Lijayasu. He would embarrass Lijayasu with his prowess. So they had their eye on this young man, as you said. They want to figure out how they can bind him to the family, because Ras Michael, or Negus Michael, wants his son to sit on the throne.
Right.
He's already had his own vision of where he wants to take the nation as well. Take it from there.
Yeah, and so the couple would come together, and as His Majesty explains, his second year in Harar, he decides on wedding Empress Menen, and her biography explains that she made this very long journey from Wallo to Harar, and how he sent his soldiers. And I'm learning so much as I did not know about his soldiers, and how efficient they were. But he sent dispatched a portion of his soldiers to meet her and to escort her, and to make sure she had the easiest of journeys to Harar. And all along the way to get to him, they were meeting different delegations that were sent to greet them, and a beautiful. It reads like poetry, and she arrives, and he doesn't wait for her to get to central Harar. At the outskirts of Harar, he meets her, and like, yeah, let's do this. Let's formalize this. Let's have this ceremony. And one of the things that Rasadi II pointed out to me first, even though I had already read Empress Menen's biography a couple times. He said, listen, the marriage is described, like what happens at the ceremony is described. And I was like, I looked at it a couple times and I didn't see that. But when I went back, that was part of what was in italics. So it is the assertion of the translator, and not a true translation from the text, but it describes that, a couple is brought in, words, prophecy from the Bible is read over them. Several things are read over them, and then they are anointed, literally, in an Orthodox marriage, and they are robed, they are given rings, they are given crowns. More prayers are made over them before the celebration start. So something to this effect is what happens on the border of Harar when His Majesty came to make it formal. And Empress Menen, of course, by means of making the journey, is open to and looking forward to. And so we have this blessed and sacred union that is in that moment. I want to mention that there are two different dates. His Majesty's autobiography says the 31st, which is anniversary would be today of 1911. Her Majesty's biography says July 29th. And I'm not sure, but the translator for her biography says she's aware of the difference in the date, but when they did the translation, that's what they saw.
Okay.
So we probably would have to go and we're going to have to go back and look at these things ourselves.
Yes.
Because a lot of times the translators are not us, and probably would interpret things differently, than we would. So we will probably have to look at that. So there's two. I know in the Empress Menen Chronicles I use the 29th, but fully aware that the 31st is the one that His Majesty, and I don't think he would be wrong, especially in that he was there in telling his own story, and someone who kept track of their life since the age of 13. I don't think he would be wrong, but I was just maintaining the fidelity of the text that he put out on Empress Menen.
As a good academic, you're using your primary source there as a reference. So talk to us about just the importance of the institution of marriage from an African perspective, because what we have seen happen is the baby motherism of the culture. You know what I mean? In the Western culture, it's not uncommon for Rastafari to have 7, 8, 9, 10 baby mother, 3, 4, 5, and this concept of marriage as a formalized union, which we know the wealthy people of the world are all married. You know,
Right. Oh,
even if they hate each other's guts,
right. Right.
they may have side chicks to the next year, but they maintain the institution of marriage. And I think it goes across every culture on the planet that
Right.
there's some formalized union where families are coming together. Talk to us about the importance of marriage in Ethiopia and in African tradition in general.
This is something that I wish I had incorporated into homeschooling and everything that I do with young people, puberty rights earlier.
Mhm.
Um, because I mean, to beat that drum once a child is 18 or 19, I mean, it's almost like it's a little late. Um, Marriage, like you said, is the backbone. If we look at some of this oldest manuscripts on marriage, like coming out of the Nile Valley, we see Aset, the co-regent and counterpart to Aser, saying, "I invented the institution of marriage.
Wow.
I made it so men should love women and that they should build and organize around that, right? And I can accept that this came out of a mother's heart because it provides an organized society where children are safe, right? And so you touched on earlier marriage not needing to be romantic. Like, I think the name says it. It's a Roman idea that, I have to fall all gushy in love with you.
The
And then,
butterflies. We need
wow,
butterflies in the stomach, or I can't get married. Eh?
right, right. And then we fall right back out of that, 3 or 4 years from that. There are some things that must be established. If we look at their majesties as our primary example, look, these people met 3 or 4 times before they decided on marriage. This was very much orchestrated by their elders. You know what I'm saying? There's a role to play for the whole community and the family because this is families coming together to build stronger units. And you said it exactly right. Look at the elite. Look at the Clintons. Look at any of those elite families. They don't play with that. They don't have their daughters out here dating everybody, picking up everybody. Almost before they walk out of school with a college degree, the next 3-4 months, you hear they're getting married to an investment banker from Israel. You know what I'm saying? Another big
Even the black elite, even the black
right.
elite, they have Jack and Jill.
Right, Jack and Jill Society, and I was just mentioning that to another parent today. That Jack and Jill Society, I've asked so many people, like, how do we get in? Like, you know, how? And it's not forthcoming information. It is something that stays in the circle of really wealthy people,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
they use that as, oh, meet him, meet her, and you grow up together, and
Yeah.
then naturally find ways to connect. You know,
They have
so
balls, debutante balls, where you
right.
ask this lady to go out with your son, and that's how they keep the wealth circulating
And
in their
yes,
community. Before we go any
absolutely.
further, we have Sister Karima, bless up yourself. Where can Empress Menen Chronicles be bought? We can put up the information. We have the website. Can we put up the information on the screen there? I'll have the producer put up the information. There you go.
Okay.
So there you can get the book there. I just want to make sure we're circulating the Rastafari dollar. Big up yourself, Sister Karima. We have Sister Africa Porter, who says, "Thank you so much for this powerful session, Dr. Asantewaa Oppong Wadie." Yes, we are doing our best. Peace and blessings. Thank you for your dedication. Love this. This is Conversations Over Pie. Blessings. We have, hold on a second. Let me get to all of the comments. We have Africa Porter. Yes, teach. Yes, that is what we are doing here. Storm, give thanks for your testimony, my sister. We love it. Big up yourself, Storm. All of the family, keeping the wealth circulating. Marriage.
Yeah.
It's so so crucial. And I think, this is one of the things. And I used to think that slavery is what destroyed the institution for us. But then I came across the research that Black people were among the most married up until the civil rights era. You know what I mean? So it was really a lot more recent that we fell out of this practice. So this is something that I want to bring to the force, particularly on this date. I think it's a day we need to celebrate and to make it normalized within Rastafari. How do we, because a lot of our children leave the Livity because they can't find mates within the Livity. We're so scattered, we're not intentional about, even matching our youths with other families and doing these things so that our youths. There's a movie on Netflix, Adam Sandler movie called Bat Mitzvah, and it's about the ceremony that young Jewish daughters go through. It's the equivalent to the bar mitzvah, and they're showing the wealthy Jewish community in Hollywood. And what I found so fascinating about this, and it's a comedy, is that every weekend they had a bat mitzvah for another young lady in the community. And they would set it up almost like a nightclub where all the children would party. They had this little party. So instead of sending their children out into the world, into the wilderness, they brought all of the club. They had the DJ. They had the whole settings. They had the Jewish music playing. And all of these rich kids interact together. As you say, it's basically like the Jack and Jill. They grow up together. They have crushes on each other. And of course, they're going to end up marrying someone from within the community. We have no such intentional. What do you think in terms of our community, the role that marriage needs to how can we emphasize this?
Yeah, so I really appreciate that question. I really think that it has to start earlier. By the time you start meeting teenagers, students who are 15 and older, their mind's already made up. I don't want anybody telling me or trying to pair me or match me. So I started when my daughter was 16 to try to put together a group of young, Black forward-thinking families to meet each other. Just meet each other. Just meet each other. That's it. Oh wow, the pushback. Not only from, but mostly from the young people themselves. Saying that they don't want me involved. They can do it themselves. We had a couple calls, conference calls, where we had young people from Canada, young people from Florida, Chicago, California, everybody on the call. And it was wonderful. It was Irie, you know what I'm saying? But they were intent. Adults need to exit. We run in this, and so there's this kind of like individualism that comes up with American rearing that, like I got this, we're talking about very important things like the endurance of our family name.
Yes.
You cannot leave that to what you do when my back is turned. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Who my grandchildren will be. This is very important. Please do not ask me to excuse myself. I don't need to be here for all of it, but understand the elders have a role in this. And eventually the group dissipated just because there was so much grumbling amongst the young people. So my point is that I think it needs to start earlier, very much earlier. Talking to young people almost from the time they can understand you, that this is the way our life goes. I can lay out the trajectory of your life. I can tell you basically what's going to happen, right? And by the time you're this age or that age, these are the things that we expect, right? And to this whole point that, there's nobody around me who thinks like me. I don't see Bridget, I don't see Sistred who thinks like me. I keep telling my own children that no matter where you go, you're going to have to lift people up. You've been given the kind of education in Blackness and in culture that is rare. It is rare to have a person as informed as yourself. And so in a marriage, you're going to have to bring him up. Yeah, don't be afraid of that role. You're assigned that role, right? And so I'm not saying get unbalanced, but be prepared as someone who has been poured into to do some pouring. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if I look at my own life, if my own king man had been like, well, she doesn't have it together, you know, I can't really deal with her. She's a far right, you know, proper. We wouldn't exist. You know, it was great that he had faith and kept pouring. You know, and I just think that that's our job when we have been given so much that we're able to nudge people in the direction. I don't know if you've been seeing the trend online, the black wife effect, and essentially these are white men who say, you know, when you get with a black wife, this is how she upgrades your life, and they show themselves dressing better, taking better care of themselves, being more.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? So there's a whole movement called the black wife effect. Okay, forget them. I'm saying for us, there's the effect of meeting culturally grounded people.
people.
Right. And we will bring up whoever comes into our midst. We're going to bring them up. It's not a choice, right? These are things that will happen. Our culture is extremely contagious.
Yes.
It is extremely appealing and will come in if we're given a clear path to you. It will come in. I don't worry about that, you know, as much. You know what I'm saying? I say stay within your racial and cultural boundaries, and we can bring people up.
Yes, yes. Sister Africa Porter is saying individualism. Can we teach on that part? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I got it, you know, and like I was just telling my daughter, you know, romantic love fails 70% of the time. So if you got in my car and I say 70% of the time this car crashes, are you getting in? Are you really getting in when 70% of the time it fails? Romantic love fails, it gives out. You to think as an individual and be like, I will know him when I see him. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, I'll have butterflies. I'm telling you, that's gonna wear out. And if we look at,
But I want my stomach to tingle. I don't feel the stars. I don't
right,
hear the music when I see him. You know what I mean?
but the thing is that one of the things that we learn in a dual language household, like we're in now, it might be a tri language household. Um, that my husband says in his native language, which is Tree, the word for marriage actually translates to the long journey.
Wow.
And so we don't undertake a long journey lightly. It's not like going up the street. There's so much prep that goes in, so much precaution. If I get a flat tire, if I make sure I have my medicine, I make sure everything needs to be carefully thought out. Love will happen. The butterflies come. You know what I'm saying? When we lay the proper foundation. You know what I'm saying? And you will appreciate it more. And for women, there's also this feeling like, oh, I'm going to be tied to the house, to the kitchen, to the rearing kids. The fun part of my life will be over. You know, that's another idea we have to put to rest. You're going to travel more, be more secure, be able to be out in the world and have stronger footing as a married woman than you will as a single woman. Hyper conscious of your safety. God has given you someone looking out for you already. You know what I'm saying? I run a very strong argument for marriage. I don't see another way forward. It is the safest and only institution that we know that serves men, women, elders, and young people.
And young people. How do we you raise an interesting point about the collective. How do we get the elders forward into the vetting process? Because historically courtship has been a family vetting process. It's never been, as you say, individual dating. You know, and I think even Ras Tafari has fallen into the hookup culture, you know,
Right.
because you're conscious and you smoke a spliff and data nice and then nature take its course, but there's not really any planning. There's not really any thought that's put in. So we're still seeing this baby mother culture among I and I when, you know, it really should be a meeting of the families before any clothes is removed. The
Right.
family should have met. There should be some agreements. There should be a process. How do we return the process, and then after that, I have another question.
Okay. So I don't see another way besides using
Yeah.
the blueprint that our ancestors left here. And I learned this process when I was in Ghana. And my children remind me, well, you didn't come in that way. And we were fortunate, we were blessed, but there were eyes that were watching us too, But traditionally, when you have friends and you're like, oh, this friend is a little more than a friend. That is the point where we do the family introductions. Not after you done got yourself all tied up and intimate with this person. Before that, you make the introduction. The introduction must happen, right? And the family say, give us time. Give us time. Okay, nice. You all love each other, or you all like each other, you're friends. Give us time. And both sides is going to secretly begin inquiry into the other side.
Okay.
Are there mental diseases in the family, physical diseases we need to know? Do they have a history of people going to prison? Do they have everything? We want to know everything. We're digging. We're digging because no one's going to put you in a hole. No one's going to birth a child, take care of a child, and then watch you go downhill, right? So deep inquiry is made. And by the time the elders come back and say, it's good, you're good, and we're giving you the green light so that now she can be seen with you. You can go out together. Now you can have deeper conversations and look into life together. And I'm not going to panic if he brings you home past 1 p.m. I'm going to know this is a family I already know.
Yes.
And I vetted this person, right? And from there, that naturally leads to marriage. I don't see another way.
Yes.
I really do not see another way. So many stories confirm this. Like, I met him online. We had a first date. I went back to his place, and then, oh my God, he committed a crime against you. We didn't know this person. We didn't vet this person. It's important to take those baby steps.
Also, it makes the person accountable to more than just you as the woman.
Yes.
If he meets your father, he meets your brothers, he knows that if he violate, that there's a consequence. There's some things that's gonna happen.
Absolutely. And I want to add that traditionally young men do not come by themselves. They bring an elder in their family, an elder uncle who can leverage his reputation in the community as saying, I'm a good and honest person. I can tell you that my nephew, I will make sure he will do right by, you know what I'm saying? So the young man doesn't come by himself. You don't have anything for us to even look into. Who are you? You know what I'm saying? You bring your people so that we know what's up. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm going to throw a wrench into this whole situation now. We're living in the age of single parents. The young man may not know his father. His mother may have done her best to raise this young man. How do we, create this system in a place where we have so many broken homes? And is a broken home a disqualifier? And then how, so if that's the case, how does the redemption happen?
Right. I don't think so. One of my mentors, Dr. Bart McSwine, would say, you don't have a father, but who fathered you? Right? Somebody did. No one comes up alone. I don't know if it's your coach. I don't know if it's your pastor. Somebody moved you along in life. So in the event that your personal situation is disturbed, and we see more and more of that, you bring those other people in. You know what I'm saying? And they represent you as family. Yes. And it allows us to see into who you could potentially be, and though not necessarily who biologically you are, you know what I'm saying? But who you have chosen as role models in your life says a lot about you, And so you were fathered, you were mothered, even if both your father and mother are not in the picture. You know what I'm saying? Let me meet those people. And I would further say that a broken home doesn't and the possibility of a union, because as I told you, my parents, their marriage fell apart after years and years and years, and I remember when I went to meet my husband's family before we were married. I made a trip back to Ghana, my second trip, and I went with my brother, and I met his family formally, and I brought a lot of pictures of my mom, my grandmother, and they asked, in very quiet tones, like, where's her husband? He's not in the picture. I'm sorry. And your grandmother, where's her husband? And he's not in the
Africans
picture.
don't play. Africans
Right,
don't play.
right. And you could hear like the quiet concern. And later my husband would tell me that they told him, you have to be really careful. You have to be really careful. This person has seen heartbreak. This person has experienced loss in the home setting. You know, um, you're going to have to tread lightly. There's healing that has to happen.
Wow.
And you have to be prepared to come to the marriage to do that work. Right. And, of course, the American person, I don't need no help. but it's 26 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Mighty, mighty, mighty. These are the examples, and you have adult children, so it worked. You know what I mean?
Right.
It really worked. You're an example for the community. I have a I have another tough question for you, because I'm just coming forward from Jamaica. I'm down there with my Ras Tafari brethren and sistren, and a lot of them, I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of them want to be in polygamous relationships. One wife is not enough. They don't have the economic resources to do that, but this is what my brethren, this is where their minds are. How does the eyesight of the institution of polygamy in marriage?
I'm not going to say I'm against it, but I will say that there are special circumstances that allow that to work. And if those circumstances are not in place, namely that the eldest wife has said, I want to invite someone else in. This is not choosing based on lust, based on looks, another person, but that we may need more financial help. We may need more legal help in this family. We may need more education help in this family. Maybe we should invite somebody else in who has that savvy. If those kind of criteria aren't met, then what are we doing except bringing confusion? And it is so easy to say that's the African way.
Yes.
That we can say that with great ease. But look at the confusion that spirals out from that. If we look at even like somebody iconic like Bob Marley, how there's, now the siblings, they look so nice when they're on stage. They look so brotherly. But we have heard the stories that it's not always like that. You know what I'm saying? You leave a generation to go at each other's throats. We have to I think, long term and be more long-term and engaged thinkers. What are you leaving here in terms of inheritance, even for one child or one set of family children, much less 3 or 4? Can you really settle those households? Let's put money out of the picture. Emotionally be there for all those people in all those different households.
But what if I send my son a Air Jordan on his birthday? That's not enough.
That's not it. No, that's what I'm saying. It's not the money even for me. You know what I'm saying?
No,
it's being present for the natural vicissitudes of life that humans will go through and they need a father for. I really consider the absence of my father, post all of the breakup in our home, a handicap. It's a handicap that you live with.
Yes.
That you learn to live with, even as an adult. You know what I'm saying? We need our parents. What are we talking about? I mean, it just sounds like confusion and the whole stylized baby mother, baby mama. I just feel like we need to ask ourselves for more. As my coach says, ask yourself for more. Is this the best that I can do? Right? And we saw even a family like the beautiful family of Nipsey Hussle when he passed, because the marriage was not legally set. then the inheritance looks shaky, right?
Yes.
And we're not sure who got what, you know? I'm
Yes.
saying that marriage secures you. It secures the future. We don't know it, right? It's the safest place for you to give birth in, provided that we vetted this human being, right?
And I think that's important, that marriage is an institution that benefits children
Oh,
the most,
yes,
and gives them that right, when they are a product of this union. And this is why the wealthy use it so much as a vehicle,
right,
to transfer that wealth from generation to generation, and as you said, to create political stability within warring nations.
right.
Marriages was the norm. I want to just ask the viewers, if you have any questions. We have Dr. Asantewaa Oppong Wadie here on Lion Talk Live. We are going deep into celebration of the union of the Dejazmatch Tafari and Princess Menen. We're talking about the institution of marriage in general. We're talking about healthy marriages, because we want to promote this within the Ras Tafari liberty. To build Zion, we need stable structures, stable families. It's a way to minimize the potential for trauma based on outside forces. So we are heavily promoting marriage. I've been married 17 years to my queen. This year we've been together over 20 years consecutively. So this is something that we're living, and I can tell you the benefits as a brethren. And one of the things I wanted to also, for the brethren, the time to get married, in the autobiography of His Majesty, he says that after he was governing Harar for a year, and he had, achieved some accomplishments, that he decided, along with his family, that the time had come to marry. And I want to emphasize that there were some things in place before marriage. He had a stable income. He was a governor. He had achieved a certain level of success on the path of his purpose. So even the time as a brethren, when you look for a wife, you need to have certain things in place to ensure that you're ready. And this is where we want to get rid of this romantic notion, where you have a crush on somebody and then you have not spent the time to build yourself as a brethren, and then you're trying to bring someone into a union. We have to re-educate our sons and our daughters. How do you, in terms of raising a wife, because a wife is not just a regular person. How can we ensure that when we are talking to our daughters, and I'm raising a daughter, and I always tell her, I'm raising her to be a wife. I don't want her to be a side chick. I don't want her to be a auntie, a hot auntie. I want her to be a wife. From a female perspective, talk to us about raising a wife, because not just about the marriage. The marriage is only one day. What is it about a wife? What is different about a wife than just a single person?
Yeah, I think as a wife, you have skin in the game. You are vulnerable. Um, you have the same vulnerabilities as your husband has, and we can build consciousness of that from building even amongst siblings. That you have to understand that if I leave you with your brother, 100, I need everything about him that I usually do for you to do. You know what I'm saying? This is how we look out and understand that family is the first thing that we protect. We don't go run outside with our friends and not understand where family is and put good cover over family. Family is the first thing we protect, right? And it prepares us as we take care of each other in the unit that we are born in, to then move to another unit where this person becomes my focus and the children that we produce becomes my focus, and where I understand that that's the first thing I protect. Like we saw with Empress Menen, her uncle, her grandfather came to her like, it's time to leave. Ras Tafari. At this point, we got something else for you. And she was like, okay, thank you. You've moved me around enough. No, I will not be going. I will not be going. She was ready then. That's a wife. We're building something here. We're constructing something here. It is of importance to me. There was a time when I didn't know better. I do now. No, I prioritize family. I make family first, right?
Mm.
She was on her way to her brother's funeral. And as we know, she had few siblings, but her younger brother passed away, unfortunately. And she was on her way when she learned of the accident that happened with His Majesty in the boating accident that he explains in his biography. She turns around from her brother's funeral and goes back to take care of home and house first, right? Because it's something you have to hyper protect, right? Just like a tender plant, or you got to build up its robustness, right? You can't turn your back on it. And I think we start to teach that in home, when we start to teach care for each other. And we don't only do that because mom said so, but as exercise for what happens in real life.
Mm. Mm. Excellent, excellent. We have Dr. Asantewaa Oppong Wadie here, doctorate in African history. And we are going deep into our own history. And if you are not subscribed, please go ahead, click the subscribe button. We're building Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. Big up Lion Pride on Patreon. We have monthly subscribers who are giving $5, $10, $15, $25 a month to ensure that we can continue to bring this content and to also elevate the content. We want to bring animation, blockbuster films, documentaries, news programming on the Lion Voice Network. We want to be your premier Rastafari content hub. We are Rising Rastafari independent non-aligned media. So join the revolution. We are growing very rapidly. Big up everyone who has watched our Norrisman interview. We're gone over 1,000 views over there. Over 1,000 views on our Queen Omega interview. We have Micah Shamaya up right now. We just dropped Jalifa, another rising talent out of Trinidad. We just dropped our Ras Attitude interview. Family, I'm fully loaded with content. We have so many interviews to upload. We're going to be lining up some interviews with our family in Ethiopia right now. So stay tuned. We're bringing the global family. We're going to be doing a lot more African content with our Rastafari family on the continent because their story has not been heard. And we want to hear, and we have communities in Ghana, South Africa, Tanzania, Malawi, Ethiopia, Kenya. We're going to be touching all of them, Zambia. We're going to be touching all of these communities so you can hear from them. Here we're bringing the Rastafari family together, one story at a time. So big up. I want to before we seal up, because we're almost at 2 hours already. The time is flying. Talk to us about Empress Menen Chronicles. What that was like, putting that together, what people can find in the book, and then we're going to pitch because we have 16 people here with us live. We want them to dip into their pockets and spend their Rastafari Pan-African dollars to support anyone we bring here on the Lion Pride. We want to give them some love. We want to give them a love splash, an economic splash here on the Lion Voice. So I have my copy. I have a signed copy just to show you how real the reading Ras. This is the reading Ras. I don't know if you can see my signed copy here. Talk to us about the Empress Menen Chronicles.
Yes, so like I said, it was a natural growth out of Empress Menen Day and people asking for more information. I need to say this to your listeners, that the book is on back order. So if you go on to Menen Chronicles today, you can leave your information that you are ready to order. Um, and I think our orders will be rolling through in the fall. Um, so always, I'm so grateful for an opportunity to share about the Empress Menen Chronicles. It has become, so large in my life, like life's work. My vision was to invite sisters to, you know, include their voice and to put out academic articles on Her Majesty. And this really is because when I started researching Empress Menen and Ras Tafari women, period, there were a lot of non-Black people writing about Black women. And that was, um, unpalatable to me. You know what I'm saying? Namely because if you haven't lived this experience, it's hard to know it. And so I appreciate what they have out there. I just wanted a source that was Black, talking about it. And the Chronicles is that way. We didn't get what we wanted, the outpouring of sisters coming in. But I have to say, since it's been published, sisters have called me from all over, like, I didn't know that was your vision. I'll certainly submit. And so there are other editions that are coming out. But our focus right now is to keep it independent. We haven't given it to a publisher, only because the publishing world has, some traps in it. And I wouldn't even call them traps. It's just so that the book benefits the publisher and benefits you, the author, and makes profit for the publisher. There is a whole lot of bills on the table with that.
Yes.
So we've tried to keep it independent, funding it out of our own pocket, and there are pauses in that. But I won't give up. When I first saw it, I struggled so much to get it together that the day that I picked it up, I remember where I was on the south side of Chicago, picking up my first copy and like bursting into tears.
Wow.
Because it took that much work and effort from me. And that it's here, and people call me all the time and let me know how much the book has blessed them. I'm just grateful. And like I said, more to come. Right now, you can leave your information on the website so that we'll know that you're on the waiting list when the book comes back into print.
Okay, and as an author myself, we have Haile Selassie's Ethiopia.
Yes.
I know exactly how you feel. The first time I held a physical book in my hand was, an experience not like no other. Knowing what it takes to birth a book, it really is very difficult to bring it to completion. The editing, the constant, it's hard because you've seen it, you've read it so many times by the time it comes out.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I can imagine. One of the things I love about the book is that you have some excerpts from interviews with Empress Menen. I didn't know Empress Menen was so fiery, because she's so, I read the speech to the women, on Women's Day, and you read certain speeches, but it's so difficult to find her word sound and her voice. So the excerpt of the interview she had with a Western woman who was trying to trap her into say something bad about, to get her to say that she was oppressed, trying to put her into kind of feminist kind of mind frame and how Empress Menen dealt with her, I thought was so fascinating. How did you find some of this material to include in the book?
Yeah, it's the dig, it's the righteous dig, and I remember talking to Nana Farika years ago, and she was like, for years, all I ever had that Empress Menen said was portions of that peace speech. That's all we had. And we hung onto that like for dear life, right? But she said she was an empress. Of course, she said more. And I was sitting at my desk at work, and I thought, what would happen? I use databases all the time to find the works of Thomas Jefferson and, all the other American historians. I said, what would happen if I put Empress Menen's name in this database? What would happen? And I just typed it lightly, Empress Menen. Ethiopia and 10,000 hits.
Wow.
And of that, I would say more than half were her death announcements,
Okay.
her transition announcements. And so if you're going to it, like, I need all the juicy stuff to pop up at the front, you're going to go through a lot because the Western world acknowledged that she transitioned because they were interested and still are interested in Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? And so they were watching all royalty, like, oh, I think she's sick, and report that.
Yeah, yes.
But they had, a nefarious intent. But
Do we know the cause of her passing? Is it definitively stated?
you know what? That's one of the critiques that I have for the translator of her biography. She, with I would say the greatest amount of disregard for the family and for her. She puts all her medical business out there and says, oh, she had high blood sugar, she had this, she had that, and I don't see them treat their own royalty that way. I don't know how Queen Elizabeth died.
Yes,
I don't
yes,
know that question is even allowed to be asked. You know
yes,
what I'm saying? We're just supposed to accept that she died peacefully, surrounded by family and friends. That's what they told us. And
yes,
so I would say, in her work, she gives her own reasons in italics
yes,
for why she thinks Empress Menen died. Take it with a grain of salt. I just don't think that sort of thing is
yes,
it's handled in that way. Uh, we can see that at the time of her transition, several things had transpired in the family. Lastly, being the son that she didn't expect to, no one expected to die. They learned that he died in a car crash, and
yes,
um, deep mourning for that. These were losses that no parent could sustain, right? Really, no parent wants. And she had bravely endured losses earlier in life of some of her daughters, and worked through that and became even more faithful. You said her faith would surge with each loss like that. But I mean, these things compile, and they hit the heart quite hard.
yes, yes,
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that would be the most I could say about
yes, yes. Give
yeah, why she
thanks for that perspective. Give thanks for that perspective. So, in terms of future work, what is your vision in terms of further documenting Empress Menen? There's an extensive history of her business affairs that I think needs some highlighting because she was quite the businesswoman. Her acumen, and even in the interview that is excerpted in the Empress Menen Chronicles, she speaks about Ethiopian women having the ability to buy property, coming into marriages with their own money. She says even some of them get rich off a divorce. Some of them choose that route. And what I found fascinating is that she said all the women in Ethiopia are married and they all have homes. Because, and I think, how I rationalize it is that she's talking about the rule and not the exception. So of course there would have been exceptions, but it's generally the expectation in Ethiopian societies that you would become married at some point. And there were Islamic, polygamy was recognized in Ethiopia. Sharia law was allowed for the Islamic members. So that was a reality, of course, also in the Omo Valley. Um, so much happening. All right. Sister Karima says also, as he mentioned in interview, it causes overpopulation. Okay. Serious. I think she may be talking about polygamy. Is that
marriages, yeah.
okay? Okay. I would love to see that interview. There's so much information, and I love that we have scholars now that are traveling to Ethiopia to get the primary sources. Because I agree, we give thanks for Edward Ullendorf in particular, all of these great, the Pankhurst family, but I think Africans need to
Yeah.
examine, and then even more importantly, Ras Tafari need to examine. I always said for myself, as I write my volumes, I need to learn Amharic so I can read
Yes.
this as an original text, and then I also need to learn the is, because
Right.
to really do the research, from the primary sources. As you say, a translator misses so much.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you don't understand the context. If I talk to someone in patois, in Jamaican lingo, and they're translating, they're gonna miss so much texture of
Right.
what's being
Right.
said, and the underlying meaning. Unless you come from that culture, yes, you'll translate it. It might be a one for one translation, but so much is lost
Right.
in the translation. So I think it's crucial, as Rastafari, having the heretical third eye open, that we learn these primary languages, we do our primary research, we dig in the archives ourselves, and we do what we have to do. Sister Africa's asking, question: how do we teach more about this to younger audiences today? I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, you know what I would like to do here, to Jasmine Kwasi, is to invite you and to your listening audience to attend an Empress Menen Day Chicago, because we this is where we put out the most recent. And so we've done a documentary called Empress Menen in Her Own Words, and we did it as a gallery tour. And Sister Africa Porter has been my co-host
Okay.
for a year, for all the whole length of
Okay, so you know Sister Africa. Okay, I didn't realize.
and we have thought together, how do we, we were speaking essentially to the adult African American, male and female, but how do we get younger people, what do we do, how do we get this information to them, and seeking for ways to digitize, as I say, things so that it's more appealing to them, do a children's version of it. When
Yeah,
we were in COVID, Sister Africa and I, we ran, Alma meets the Empress, and Alma's like 8 years old in that story, a digitized version that you can play for your children at home, uploading it to YouTube so that children get it, right? But the most important things that Empress Menen says, I want you to know that I stand 10 toes down with Nana Farika when she said Empress Menen was hidden from us. What they have put out as the peace speech, there's a reason why the New York Times has that speech splattered across the page in big print. There's a reason, right? In ways, although there are ways to interpret it that where it is fiery, it is actually a very accommodating speech. Empress Menen, just months later, will give a speech in 1936 that will rock them, because she calls them all out. You all do not run democracies. France, you don't run one. England, you don't run one. How are you watching a larger country come and bomb us? And that didn't make the papers, because they want to pacify her, because they want to pacify us. So that when you look at her, well, she was demure, she was quiet, she was a woman of prayer. I've heard that so many times at Bingy's. She was a part of the church. No, she was political.
yes,
She was part of the world. Times Magazine, if I don't have my quote wrong, actually said at the end of her physical stay here on the earth, she had no political engagement. How is that possible? How is that possible? This is someone who spoke directly to governments. As we said at Empress Menen Day, when she released the peace speech, they blocked her speech that was supposed to air on CBS in the United States. This isn't a small woman. I'm just trying to build the larger picture. Her
no,
speech
love
was supposed
love
to air on CBS radio in the United States. And if you go back and read the log for CBS, you will see her name clearly written there.
Wow.
For that speech that was supposed to happen in September 10th, 1935. It was scheduled to air. What happened, and we got the original recording and we played it at Empress Menen Day. As soon as the announcer said, the next voice you will hear is Empress Menen, what you get is an interrupted Morse code signals, sirens going off. You don't even get to hear the first utterance of the Empress's words.
Wow.
Right? They would totally squash her out. And then later, when they read the speech and saw that there was no threat that they could, ascertain, they then put it in their papers, right? And so in 1936, she went via Russia because she said, if I go through the United States and Britain, they're going to block this speech. I'm going to go via Russia so that the speech is going to get out. But the Italians interrupted again.
Wow.
So that speech was not heard, and nobody put it in their papers because she lit fire under all of them. So you all should be ashamed to call yourself like democratic, that you're here for peace. She called them out. And I feel like as someone who wasn't so much involved with visiting, governments in other countries, she could run. She could say what was in her heart. She didn't have to be diplomatic. His Majesty always diplomatic. She just told them,
Yes.
right? You should be rocked to shame based on your behavior. So the fiery side of Empress Menen, we love that side. We bring that side out. I would like to share Empress Menen in her own words. We have to think about how we share it, but to share that because it's a documentary unto itself, and it can, once you run it, you can see the whole thing.
Yeah,
We give her own words where she takes them on one-on-one, and I just feel like you get a better understanding.
And I also want to add, if you want to reach young people, support the Lion Voice Network financially. I know animators. We have plans to animate some stories. We have to get into animation for the young people. It's easier for them to consume.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The bright colors, the movement. You know what I mean? For young people. We can tell compelling stories in that format and make it exciting for them, so that it's not like you're forcing them to learn. They're just watching entertainment and they're being educated at the same time. I think that's our best option. Sister Karima is here starting some trouble with our Caribbean brethren, because she said, as him said in the interview when asked about concubines, it causes overpopulation. This is already a problem for humanity. A lot of our brethren, particularly in the Caribbean now, light of fire, have fallen into the concubinism. And that is what we call these women that you don't intend to marry, but you're being intimate physically with these women. I born Gallus, over here on the Lion Voice Network. We don't support the womanizer lifestyle that many brethren have fallen into. It's an easy trap, because one of the hidden secrets of Ras Tafari as a brethren is that when you put on the locks, you do become very desirable to many sistren. I didn't know that. Is when I came Rastafari, I was seeing the attention, and I was like, okay, I never know. I thought the pretty boys were running the place, but that power, once you take on that divine principle, it can lead you into trouble if you're not disciplined. And this is why His Majesty in his speech to the University College of Addis Ababa on leadership, he says that leaders must have high moral restraint and control of their bodily functions and desires. You know what I mean? And discipline is a basic ingredient of morality. These are utterances that His Majesty has made, and these are utterances that have kept I on the straight and narrow path, and it's required for us to rebuild our families, because part of this Armageddon struggle for brethren is really rebuilding the family structure, and that's going to take discipline. So I really, again, give thanks for this reasoning. Give thanks for the work that the I is doing. We have reached the 2-hour mark. So I'm just going to ask the I to say your final words, so leave us with some final wisdom, and let the people know again how they can reach the I, how they can support the I movement, because it's not just about the Lion Voice Network. It's about all of the guests who come on here. They are part of our extended family. I want all of the Lion Pride to spend, let us build that culture. We have to re-educate ourselves. Yes, we're living hand to mouth, most of us. But at the same time, we're finding money to pay for things in Babylon.
That's right.
That money is going on. If you're living in America in particular, you're not surviving without spending thousands of dollars a month. That's
Right.
just not a reality
Right.
anymore in
Right.
America. You know what I mean? There's no little hundred here or there. Rent, you're already in the thousands. Any major city in America right now, if you're living. So money is passing through our hands. We have to make the sacrifice to siphon off a 50, a 10, a 5, a $25 and make sure it's going back into the community that we say that we're a part of. It's so crucial, family. I keep stressing this on this platform that we have to fund our liberation. No one is coming to save us. I keep saying that. So we definitely are there. Now, Nikki Dreadlock says, give thanks. Thank you, Africa, for sending this link to me. So, Sister Africa, I hope you're part of the Lion Pride. You have been so lively in the comments. We want the eye to be a regular feature. I can see why Dr. Asantewaa speaks so highly of the eye and why you're her co-host.
Right.
You've been so active and so joyful in the comments. So I hope that you have subscribed to our platform on YouTube, and that you will join us, and prepare for the eye interview, because this is the
That's
platform
right.
where we are hearing from the workers.
Yeah.
Sister Karima, I hope the eye is also preparing the eye self, the eye and the eye king man, because we need all of these voices to touch. The time to gather is now. I'm long-winded, Doctor Santa.
All
So
right.
let me turn it over to the eye for your final word sound, and then we can seal up this beautiful gathering.
Yes, I would like to underscore what you said, that the Lion Voice Network is definitely worthy of our support. And I saw a few people here from Empress Menen Day Chicago, and I'm urging you all from my heart to support this network. And I think, in addition, I just want to leave the family with the whole idea that an example has been set. Um, Myself and others are from examples of marriage that didn't go the way we would have liked. And that is not the end of the world, because an example has been set, not only by this couple, but this couple was so visible on the world stage. In terms of Black power couple, I don't think we have a more visible couple in the 20th century. So we can access that, we can look to that. We can say, wow, if they can do it, so can I. I urge you all to take family building seriously. Above and beyond anything else that we do, this will have the most lasting impact. So I give thanks for this opportunity to share. Give thanks to Jasmine Kwasi. It's really been a blessing. And man, many more I'm hoping for. Yeah.
Yes, yes, you're a regular now. This is number 3. This is your third visit on the network. So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen our Empress Menen episode with Dr. Asantewaa, and then we just did the birth of Lich Tafari episode with Dr. Kadamawi Knife, one of my favorites, and now this. So we have a growing archive of her knowledge. If you love the knowledge, go forward in our Lion Log and watch those videos. Today, family, we celebrate the 113th anniversary of the wedding of Ras Tafari and Princess Menen, who would become Haile Selassie and Empress Menen. This is a day that we're going to celebrate on this channel every year. We believe that marriage, or we know that marriage, is one of our important institutions, and I see our generation, Generation X, the millennial generation, Generation Z, our job is to break the generational curses, to re-establish the institutions. His Majesty trod on earth was the building of institutions in Ethiopia, all of which still remain to this day. And as his children called by his name, we are called to rise forward the institutions of nationhood, of power. And there is no power without marriage. The family is the first government. As a king, you must have a kingdom. Your kingdom is your family. Your queen is a part of that. When you're vetting your queen, you must have family involvement. We have to restore our family structure. So that's what we're about. If you're not subscribed to the Lion Voice Network, please go ahead, click the subscribe button, like, share, tell your brethren, tell your sister, Ras Tafari, independent, non-aligned media is on the rise. We are here. We have arrived. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the Lion's Voice.
All right. Good thanks. Give thanks. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Love and strength.
Right. Yes,
Blessings,
sir.
blessings, blessings.